first gig? Wow. For a start, I was painfully shy. Well, I felt that I didn't want a crowd to sit back and ignore me. So I'd go out and I'd jump on the tables and kick the drinks on the laps, and people started then remembering who I was. Well, that was my first gig, but let's face it, everybody does have their own story.
We know him as a music legend, but where did his story begin?
I was just obsessed by music. I had cassette players, so I used to just sing into them, sing my own songs.
What experiences shaped the artist he would become?
I can actually remember that Ross Wilson said, "Oh, you should write serious songs. You shouldn't write joke songs, or you'll never be able to keep doing this." And I took that to heart.
And is there a song that inspired his career?
I ain't nothing but a man in love, and that's the only thing I'm thinking of.
On the surface, Stephen Cummings seems the quiet achiever. While most famous for leaving the band The Sports for a short yet rapturous period in the late 70s and early 80s, Stephen has quietly continued crafting music for the last 30 years. An auteur of his own making, something rarely seen in Australia, Stephen is arguably one of the most prolific artists of his ilk, with no less than 16 albums to his name. Along with Joe Camilleri, Daddy Cool and the Skyhawks, Stephen Cummings played an equally significant role in Melbourne's fervid music scene of the 70s, a scene that arguably influenced much of the talent we see today. As a singer, songwriter and author of 3 novels, Stephen began like many as a rampant music fan, devouring all the sound his ears could stand. The labyrinth of pop music venues Melbourne had on offer in the mid-60s often proved too great a temptation for the prepubescent Stephen.
My researchers tell me that you had a habit wagon school.
Yeah, they used to be in the very late 60s, because venues weren't licensed, so you could be sort of young, like could be 12 or whatever. And you had lunchtime gigs that ran from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Wag school and going to town and Flinders Street Station, sort of put my regular clothes in the storage things and sort of change into some jeans and stuff and go and see the Wild Cherries and
Bobby Lloyd.
Purple Heart, Space City Union.
Right, yeah. Melbourne,
everyone.
Melbourne had a good scene then, didn't it?
Yeah.
There was lots of great live bands. Yeah. And when did you actually start playing in the band? Were you in a band at 12?
No.
No?
No, I had...
Did you get into bands that were you playing instruments or anything like that? No?
Yeah, I had a drum kit. And I used to play the drums mainly at home, and I was just obsessed by music. I had cassette players.
Right.
Because my father was a chef, and then he became a taxi driver, and he was a sort of innovative taxi driver, and then he'd fix up tapes. He'd make these tapes so he didn't have to talk to people. Take Japanese tourists down to Phillip Island, and he'd have this tape going.
He used
to have a guy do it. He used to get that guy who did the wrestling, Paul Jennings, to do the voiceover for him.
That's really cool. I like cab like that.
And so we had tape machines, cassette players everywhere, and so I used to just sing into them, sing my own songs, and then I got a guitar, and then...
Right, and was that, like Australian... Were you listening to overseas music?
I listened to everything, but I always really liked Australian groups.
Yeah, I
always liked Australian music.
Eventually, you ended up in art school, I believe.
Yeah, I went to art school, yeah.
What's the attraction with... How come so many people go to art school and then all of a sudden drop out and do music?
Yeah, well, I thought that's how you...
that's how you get into it.
That's how you get into music.
Yeah, the Rolling Stones did it.
That's right.
So art school would have changed your musical tastes?
Yeah, it did, yeah. And I used to go out to a lot of... I went out to, there were big sort of shows in Melbourne, that's when changed from discotheques to... They became sort of more like hippie or head shows, as they were called then. I first saw Joe Camilleri and he had a really wild group called Lip Arthur, or Lip and the Double Decker Brothers. And I used to go and watch them a lot because they were really sort of wild.
While Stephen's attendance of art school was primarily to meet people of a similar creative leaning, his connection with film student Greg McCanish would finally put him on the path to making music. Greg was a member of the band Frame, who later became the Skyhawks, and Stephen occasionally operated the lights while they played. Soon, Stephen had made further connections in music, bought some second-hand electric guitars, and formed the Polacco Brothers with Joe Camilleri. An innovative and adventurous band, The Palaco brothers blended the seemingly incongruous genres of rockabilly, R&B and country swing.
We started doing that, and with Joe, and I was the singer, and Joe played sax.
Right.
So we went to Perth and played at this nightclub called Gobbles.
Right.
And we used to play, it was like the Beatles of the Hamburg. We used to play 6 nights a week for a month.
Right.
From midnight to 6 a.m.
I heard stories about that. Which
we had no money, and we arrived in, because we were really about 19 or something, we arrived in Perth and didn't know anyone, had nowhere to stay, and it was like a disaster, no equipment. So that was sort of a good awakening, and Joe got actually so scared that he was going to go back on his first wife. He stayed on for 3 weeks as a cleaner, working as a cleaner to get some money to take back. That sort of time in the mid-70s and late 70s was the best sort of time. That's why a lot of the groups were sort of good, because there were so many kind of gigs. And
it was all original material?
Yeah, it was always, basically, yeah. We did some sort of like R&B and obscure rockabilly sort of covers and stuff like that.
People described you as a sort of a reluctant performer, because you had a bit shy. As a lot of singers are, But your style developed out of that shyness, I reckon?
Yeah, out of a shyness. Yeah, well, Joe was a pretty wild stage performer, so I was playing with Joe, so I learned a lot of things from him.
So, and where did the name come from? So named after the shirts?
Brothers, it's a big factory in Richmond in Melbourne on a hill.
They made shirts, didn't they?
Yeah, handmade shirts, and they had a sort of famous sort of slogan, which is sort of a racist slogan that said, "Me Tinkham, these are good shirts." And it was sort of it was an iconic sort of Australian design, but we used to do sort of wacky things.
So I guess at some point the Palaco brothers, did Joe leave, or did you? Or did
Joe
you
left.
leave?
Joe left and started JoJo Zepp basically, because when we went to Perth, he was doubling up because Ross Wilson had laryngitis. He used to go and play with them as well. And he came back and he cut his first single, which was Joe's Run Run Rudolph, which basically is Daddy calling him. Right. And so then I just got my own thing going. And I could actually remember that Ross Wilson said, "Oh, you should write serious songs."
Right.
I shouldn't write joke songs, or you'll never be able to keep doing this. And I took that to heart.
Right. Let's face it, everybody has their own story.
The first one that comes to mind is a gig I did at school. I was at boarding school, and we did this show for the boys. There was a microphone there and the PA system that was in the hall. And it was the first time I'd ever sung into a mic and just heard it go out into a room like that. And it was very exciting, and I was completely addicted straight away. It must be like a drug addict when they have their first hit. The second one that springs to mind is a split-end show at a club in Wellington called Ziggy's, where we were doing our show and we hadn't planned it or hadn't even known about it, but Noel Crombie decided that night to unleash the spoons on the crowd. And he came out from the kitchen. We just heard this clattering noise in the middle of a song, and out he came playing these spoons, and the whole crowd, the place went nuts. And that was it forever. We just knew there was a sort of vaudeville theatre kind of aspect to us that we just hinted at, and suddenly it was crystallised. It was very exciting.
Like the inner lining of a favourite coat, Stephen Cummings might not be the most visible part of Australia's musical fabric, but he is the part beneath, making contact and a genuine connection with those who try him on. A showman without the show, Stephen's love of music as a fan drew him towards some of the most influential figures on the Melbourne music scene during the 70s, and would see him form the Palaco brothers with Joe Camilleri. The Melbourne scene was so prosperous at the time, a band like the Palaco brothers were able to exist on live gigs alone. Camilleri, the more extroverted and ambitious of the two men, began to develop JoJo Zepp and the Falcons, for which Stephen briefly played, though quickly he found his own musical path to follow. After his tuition with many keystone figures on the Melbourne scene, Stephen assembled a new group of friends who shared his want to just play music, whether they were successful or not. The Sports were born, and what seemed like a lack of ambition on Stephen's part eventually became the kind of deserved success that comes to those who wait.
I had no plans at all, frankly. It was just sort of, I wanted to do music, and I I didn't have a thought in my hand. Both of us were lucky. We sort of started music at a time when, for some crazy reason, people would like to go out and see
a group that had written a song that day, that night, you know, and I like to see groups play their own thing, and, you know, it's just a freak time when you get out and you just got out and started playing, and you'll play 5 or 6 nights a week, and, you know, a circuit came up, so you go to Adelaide and play, you know,
whatever was that, the hotel
well, you
there.
play, well, just like 5 hotels. You play you go on a Tuesday and you play to Sunday.
Yeah.
And then
Melbourne was particularly good for that.
And Melbourne was very good for that,
A lot of great pubs, you know, a lot of great pubs, which I reckon is, you know, part of the reason that, you know, that whole era of Australian bands, you know, they have a lot to thank Melbourne for, you know.
Oh, we made an EP. 2 fans paid for us to make an EP, and the EP got reviewed at England in the NME and got a big, huge sort of page review, and we got Joe to produce the first record because basically he was the only other person I knew that had made a record.
Did you get frustrated being in the one vehicle?
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to change it around more, and then...
Because I remember seeing gigs with the Sports and like Bombay Rock in Melbourne, and there was times where you'd almost be like, you'd be sort of pulling the band in different directions.
Yeah.
And it seemed like you were like, you know, they were going one way and you were trying to drag them another. And, And it sort of caused a lot of tension, which I thought was pretty good too, from a punter's point of view. Yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, no, I was always yelling. You know, people hate me. I was always yelling. I was very intense.
Yeah.
But so I was shy but intense, and...
Did you see the end of the band, you know, fairly early in the piece? Could you actually picture...
No. We still got the thing going, and then it's sort of like, in sort of rock, and things happen quickly, really. They don't really happen slowly at all. And suddenly, we're like in England, we're playing over there, and we signed a deal with Stiff and Sire, and, you know, Giniski sold us to, you know, his big deal with Arista, and it all happened really quickly, but because it also happened quickly, we're probably a bit like spoiled brats. I mean, I was probably a spoiled brat, and so I could see this was going to take... We're going to have to tour for years, and I found touring really boring.
Right.
Because I just sort of like, what, you know, I could just see if I did this, I'll mess up my life badly, because I just found hanging around and found really boring.
Well, that's the classic Charlie Watts thing, you know, 25 years of touring, and, you know, it's 2 years of gigs and the rest is sitting around.
You know, I probably wasn't sort of gung-ho enough, but anyway, whatever, we sort of did that and did a few tours and that, and then, you know, it looked like a record was going to suddenly we were going to have a big, with Illustrated, a big hit, and it was getting played everywhere, but then I just sort of flipped out a bit, really, basically. Just that moment had gone. I just wanted to do my own thing, and you know, we just sort of like felt like we had the most fun really after then. So we never really had manager.
Right.
We were like unmanageable. We couldn't make a decision. We were the sort of people who we'd go out to a restaurant, the guys in the group, and we'd take us 6 restaurants. Walk in. Oh no, I don't want to go. Okay. We go walk. You know, we just like couldn't make it. We don't want to sack the drummer. Oh well, we can't just sack the drummer. We'll have to look. I know what we'll do. We'll say we're breaking up.
We're all breaking up.
We're all breaking up, and then in 2 weeks we'll get back together with a different drummer. Okay. So you know, we were like hopeless.
Yeah,
we were hopeless. You know, when I went solo. I didn't play any of the sports songs for 20 years.
Right, yeah.
It was like having a divorce. It was sort of like, you don't go back with them. That's it, you're splitting up.
You can stay friends with the tunes, though.
You can.
But a man in love, and that's the only thing I'm thinking now. Oh, girls, they say I'm the only one.
For a person who never courted the heights of music fame, Stephen Cummings swam in its waters for a good half-decade with his band, The Sports. A fan-funded EP led to rave reviews in UK music bundle NME. The band had a US top 40 hit with Who Listens to the Radio, and they toured with the likes of Blondie, the Buzzcocks and Elvis Costello. After 4 albums, Stephen called game over for The Sports in 1981, citing the group's indecisiveness as a key factor in their split. Never one to move hurriedly, it would be another 2 years before we saw anything from Stephen as a solo artist. His first solo single, Gymnasium, would be a chart success and was followed by 16 albums across the next 3 decades, Stephen eventually winning an ARIA for Best Adult Contemporary Album in 1990.
You went solo and it was
Yeah.
a pretty prolific sort of career.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about your first solo gigs?
Well, I just didn't want to get too involved. I just wanted to make records, really, and not sort of tour, but, you know, you can't sort of live like that, so...
Yeah. Was it liberating, sort of going solo?
Yeah, just like being responsible for myself.
Yeah.
Not for anyone else. If I didn't want to work, I didn't work.
Well, that's one of the things I found with leaving Cultures. I found that, you know, like one of the reasons I did it is because it really forced me to make, you know, decisions of myself, to write myself.
Yeah.
You know, what would you find are the pros and cons?
You're just responsible to yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was sick of having, you know, people's girlfriends ring up and say, why don't we go out and work? And I say, well, why don't you go out and work? I
Get a job. What about the cons? What did you miss from being in the band?
Is that you never quite got that club mentality of being a group or a club, you know, a clan.
The tribe, wandering
Yeah, the
tribe.
tribe sort of thing. You never quite got that. And, you know, I've tried to get around it by working with the same people for a long time. Played with, for about, you know, 8 years or 9 years with, more probably with Shane O'Mara, who's a sort of producer, great guitarist and stuff. And played with him for a long time, and his partner, Rebecca Barn. She's a good singer, so I had sort of good people, and they went off, you know, of course they wanted to do their own career, not just play with me. So most of the people I play with actually end up playing with, they all play with Paul Kelly now.
So your training ground.
Well, yeah, I'm a training ground for Paul Kelly. And like,
That's very, I think it was. Paul owes you a lot of thanks.
He
then.
does.
If you look at the thread between, say, the Palacca brothers, you know, through the
Well,
sports, through their solo career, what's that common, the essence?
I really still love like 50s kind of music. I think that's the most powerful period of music that, you know, there ever has been. Yeah. And so I like that. So I always keep coming back, and I've made more sort of rockabilly sort of style records as well. But, you know, I'm not into a homage or anything like that. I sort of mix up the lyrics. You know, I like playing with words and stuff like that, and that's what I've always sort of wanted to do.
The song we've chose today, Modern
Don Juan. Yeah.
Is it a Buddy Holly song?
Yeah, it's a Buddy Holly song, yeah. I'm doing that because I saw it as well, you know, like when I was younger, when I first played this song.
Did you play it in the bands?
Yeah, at the very start. I got into music, I played it, and then you get in a group because you love music, and also you want to pick up girls and stuff like that.
Buddy Holly certainly did.
Yeah, a modern Don Juan. It seemed, you know, I like the idea of that.
Yeah,
it sounded
cool
good.
Thing, So when was the last time you played it?
Well, basically what I did, the other thing I did was, like, you know, when I went solo. I didn't play any of the sports songs for 20 years.
Right, yeah.
I just said, that's it. No, I'm not doing it. But then I sort of, you know, after 20 years, I made a sort of close-ups album, which I sort of did with Shane, sort of acoustic versions of sports songs and stuff. And
was it nice? It was good to revisit them?
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good fun, and because I already sort of mentally sort of like I made so many records. Like, I mean, well, in one way it was a sensible thing. It was a good thing to do because I kept stuck to my sort of thing of just making this is me.
Yeah.
It was like having a divorce. It was sort of like you're splitting up with someone. You don't sort of like go back with them.
Yeah.
That's it. You're splitting up.
Yeah. You can stay friends with the tunes, though.
You can. Well, that's why I am. I'm staying friends with them. Now I've sort of enough time's gone, I can be quite good friends with them. So, yeah, I've just been learning this one lately, just because I thought just for fun, yeah.
Well, you know, I'm glad to get a chance to play it.
Okay.
Like it's your first gig.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I ain't nothing but a man in love, and that's the only thing I'm thinking of. Oh, girls, they say, yeah, I'm their only one. Yeah, well, they say that I'm a mile and don't want. There's one thing that puzzles me. I got a girl and she can't see. Well, I wanna make her mine. Well, she thinks I'm just a hand in her line. Ooh, but love is so. Yeah. say that I'm a Monday down one.
Bridge.
Ooh, but I love her so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I'll never let her go. Oh no, I ain't nothing but a man in love. 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 I ain't nothing but a man in love.
That's the way they used to do fades in the old days.
Yeah, I know.
Stephen is a bit of an enigma. You know, I've been a fan of Stephen's for a long time, the sports and and his solo stuff. But I've never really known Stephen, and I just remember seeing him in sports. He was intense and nervous looking, and I was always a bit scared about talking to him. Got here, and I just found him really warm. I found him really engaging. I found a real wealth of knowledge of music and had a depth of appreciation of music that I never realised. And then to get to sing with him, he picked this great, Buddy Holly song, Modern Don Juan, which I just thought was fantastic. It's one of those good moments where you get to sort of see something else in a person that you haven't seen before. He is nervous, he is intense, but he's also funny, he's warm, and he's talented. I love it.